The odds against Arlene's survival in this hellish maelstrom were astronomical, but then, so they were against mine. Hope that she might have made it kept me going. Fury at the thought of her death spurred me to action. Maybe just when I was running out of steam, the need for revenge would inspire yours truly. As if to test my newfound resolve, Phobos threw some more at me. Glancing down, I saw that the access shaft did not descend the full 6 stories required to reach the nuclear plant. The ladder ended in a few ragged shreds of metal. An explosion had cut off the rest of that route. Of course, I could always get to the nuclear plant level really fast, so long as I didn't mind the sudden stop at the end. Damn, I knew this was too good to be true, I said out loud. Just before running out of ladder, I saw a thick, metal hatchway leading to the next level down. It looked solid, heavy. A pressure lock held it shut. I would have to spin the wheel to open the door. A happy trick when the ladder ended a couple of rungs above the hatch. For a moment I was stymied. I could just barely reach the wheel by hanging one-handed from the last rung, but I had no leverage. I couldn't turn it to save my life. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and thought for several seconds. Jesus, what am I? Stupid all of a sudden? I rotated around the ladder, lowered myself until my lower legs poked through the last hole, then slowly let my body down until I dangled upside down from my knees. Now I had the leverage. All it took was muscle. I cranked the wheel clockwise, loosening it until it spun freely. I wrestled open the door, and now for the hard part. Holding tight to the wheel of the now open door, I straightened my legs, dropping heavily as the wheel spun. I clung to it grimly, swinging back and forth until I finally stopped swinging. I edged around the door and caught the corresponding wheel on the inside and swung myself up into the shaft. I lost nothing but any desire I might have had to take my name to heart and become a human fly as a career path. The access shaft led me into a tunnel, where the light was crappy again, flickering on and off, like some sicko nightclub. It was tall enough to stand, and I did. After 5 meters, I decided this was the weirdest stretch of architecture yet. The light was lousy, but it was good enough to make out the walls, plain and gray, with an oddly rough-hewn surface, as if hacked out of the rock with a magic axe. Large rectangular designs everywhere gave the feeling of a colossal cemetery. More than anything else, the strong impression of something truly ancient and evil permeated the narrow corridor. Alien, and yet familiar somehow. It was as if I'd been cast inside the oldest labyrinth in the universe, and would spend the rest of my life trying to find my way through the maze. Damn imagination acting up again. Memory was better. At least it gave me something to hold on to. A link to the past. A better past. Then I saw old Gunnery Sergeant Goforth walking down the corridor in my direction. The failing light made it difficult to make out skin tones, but the smooth, purposeful way he walked made me think he couldn't be a zombie. It was Gunny Goforth, and he was alive. "Gunny!" I shouted, ecstatic to have finally found another live one in this nightmare. He didn't answer. My God, that should have told me something. He raised his old dirty caliber and aimed it right at my chest. I threw myself to the floor just as the bullet seared over my head. "Damn you to hell!" I shouted, outraged that the universe had decided to foist a new, improved zombie on me. Too late. I'm sure he already was, and me with him. This new horror seemed even more unfair than that crazy brown monster with the spikes. I'd settled into a nice predictable pattern about what to do with zombies. It's no fair changing the rules now. Hey, Gunny, you're still a pal. He marched straight for me. No deviations, no ducking, no turning sideways to make a more difficult target. An obliging guy in his way. Of course, he was working the bolt on his sniper rifle, trying to blow my head from Phobos back to Earth. I didn't just lie on the floor waiting for that unacceptable outcome. I had plans of my own. In life, Gunny Goforth could shoot. Hell, could shoot the apple off a young Marine's head. In death, he shot better than all the other zombies. And he blinked. I rolled back and forth, waiting until he was 10 meters away. Then I shouldered the riot gun and squeezed. It was the biggest mess I'd made on this godforsaken rock of a moon so far. The splatter was sort of an artistic statement, but I must have gotten something in my eye. I kept blinking, but it wouldn't go away. Somebody was laughing, sort of a crazy, whacked-out cackle. "Shut up!" I screamed at the jokester, wiping my cheeks. The laughter stopped, and only then did I realize the mirth was courtesy of a poor jarhead named Fly. This was no good. I had to get a handle on the situation. Running multiplication tables in my head helped me chill while I scavenged Goforth's pack for ammo. My breathing slowed to something sane, and my heartbeat took a licking but kept on ticking. In fact, I was so calm I barely blinked when a whirring, metallic skull sailed past my head. This time, I was sure my imagination was off on a wild toot. I'd never done hallucinogens as a kid, and it just wasn't fair for my imagination to suggest a giant white skull had gone flying past, on its way to the demonic head shop, no doubt. So I made a deal with my imagination. If it didn't throw any more Halloween balloons at me, I'd give it a break when it wanted to go traipsing down memory lane. I can be fair. I ran like a madman up the corridor, jogging a couple of times. Whatever it was, I'd lost it for now. Emerging into a big open room made me feel more claustrophobic. That might sound fairly nutty, but you'd have to see this place for yourself. I wasn't bothered by the incredibly high, arched ceiling, supported by the grotesque pillars that would be more at home in some ancient palace in India. No, what bothered me was that this huge room was full of barrels of that noxious green liquid I thought I'd left behind, and good riddance. The empty, cavernous room was a perfect place for a congregation of Halloween goblins and all species of zombie, fast and slow, dull and the cognitive elite. No sooner had this unpleasant thought crossed my cranium than the floodgates opened, and they started pouring into the room from all directions. I shrank back into the shadows, trying to look dead and mindless. It worked for a few moments. None of the zombies seemed to notice me. There really wasn't time for a sanity check, but I ran a quick one anyway. I'd read about a mental condition, or philosophy, I forget which, called solipsism. You think of something, and it happens. The ultimate case is when you think you're all that exists, and the whole universe is your dream. Man, I was ready to buy into that. If only I could dream away these monsters as quickly as I seemed to be filling up this room with them. Well, what can I lose? I closed my eyes and concentrated real hard, wishing away the boogeymen. While I was thus occupied, I was blown off my feet by an explosion and searing heat right over my head. Opening my eyes to excruciating pain, I discovered I wasn't alone on the floor. Whatever had blown me down got the nearest few zombies as well. I decided that solipsism was a load of crap, and when I looked up, my old friend was back, the crusty brown monster with ivory white spikes, and he'd brought his buddies. They watched me stagger to my feet, and they laughed. Then one of them wound up and threw something, some sort of mucus ball that burst into blood-red flames as it left the creature's hand. I dived across a burning zombie, and the flaming phlegm spun my buttocks over boots. I looked for a weapon, a glint of metal, a tube, something. But no, these demons were actually producing the fire with their bare hands, and their aim was deadly. The monsters hissed, pointing directly at yours truly. Then the zombies noticed me for the first time, and began shooting. They weren't too particular about innocent zombies getting in the way either, and whenever one zombie would shoot another, or a demon would pelt a bunch with a flaming mucus ball, the monster victims would turn on their monster allies, completely forgetting about me. While I ran screaming from one side of the room to the other, I filed that little datum somewhere in the back of my brain for future use. Now the room was really filling up with at least a dozen zombies and 3 leathery demons, and again I dived to the side as a whirring, screaming hunk of steel buzzed my helmet. This time, there was no mistake. It was a goddamn flying skull with flaming rocket exhaust spewing out the back. It turned and banked, trying to mow me down and chew me up with razor-sharp steel teeth, like one of those wind-up chattering skulls gone mad. But the fireballs were the main problem. The brown demons were a lot tougher than the zombies. Suddenly, I was grateful for the pillars. They provided cover at least. Making a mad dash for the nearest, I fired off the shotgun at the remaining zombies. Catching my breath, I risked running to the next pillar. This time a fireball almost fried me. There was just no way I could get to the demons from here without being toasted, and the shotgun range was too short to pop them where I crouched. While I dithered, I heard a whirring behind me, then a harsh, iron screech. Sure enough, the flying skull had sailed around the pillars and spotted me again. "I can take care of you at least, you FX reject." I whipped the riot gun around and fired from the hip, not even taking time to aim. It was the biggest mistake of my life. The little bugger skittered out of the way. I tried to track as I fired, and I popped one of the toxic barrels instead. It exploded with a terrific concussion, kicking me in the body armor like a mule and tearing off a chunk of my Kevlar vest. The skull vanished in a spray of metal gears and exploding JP-5. Almost immediately, my bruised eardrums were assaulted by another explosion, then another, and a fourth. 5 or 6 more barrels touched off in rapid succession. All I could think was thank God I was on the other side of the pillar, and a critic cloud of blue smoke swirled around the walls and floor, residue from the explosive oxidation of the toxic goo. Gasping, I peeked around the pillar at a scene of astonishing carnage. Zombies and demons alike had been torn to shreds and strips of gray flesh, their parts mingling in a hellish mulligatawny. The stench of 1,000 sour lemons permeated the room, even driving out the horrible burning smell of the toxic fumes. Jesus, I thought, I hope the cameras got the shot. I climbed shakily to my feet and padded toward the door, chastened by the awesome destructive power in those 45-gallon drums. At the edge of the room, I found the only other survivor. The demon crawled along the ground with its hands, one leg blown entirely off, and the other twisted into a crazy angle. It leaked yellow pus, globules that burst into flame as soon as they dripped off the monster's body. I leveled my shotgun at its head. "Die, you dumb animal," I said with a smile. "Animal," repeated the demon. "Not." I paused, startled. I didn't know they could talk. "You're right," I prodded. "At least animals kill you clean or leave you alone." It twisted its head all the way around, to stare up at me while lying belly down on the floor. My stomach turned at the sight. "You are animals. We fix planet." I curled my lip, but my heart leaped. Which planet was that? Mars? Or did the aliens' plan include Earth? We'll mow you down as fast as you bubble up out of the sewers, you piece of filth. The alien monster laughed, opening its mouth wide enough to swallow a man's head. We throw rocks. Big rocks. The image was ludicrous, but I got a premonitory shudder. Somehow, I guessed the emphasis was on the word big.